Hi guys, it's Kai and welcome back to my channel. I'm so proud of today's video because it's about a month in the making. I don't think I've ever spent this long on a single outfit in my life. It took me far longer than my regular production cycle. Call it a passion project. I was initially inspired by a blue denim jacket that I had covered in rhinestones and fringe for a project that I'd done with CBC Life here in Canada. And I loved the outcome of that project so much, I wanted to do it again in another color. And that just took me down this wild path of the whole cowboy trend that's been really popular recently. So that's where I got the inspiration to make these chaps to go with the look. I was also inspired by Lady Gaga, John Wayne. I've just had this number in my mind ever since the conception of this, from start to finish. Just that intersection between country and glamour and punk rock. Hopefully you see those references. I didn't make this all from scratch. This is a black denim jacket that I just upcycled from the mall. And I also bought this bra from the mall. I've just stoned them both. Though these panties and the chaps I totally made from scratch. For the sake of keeping this video under 100 minutes long, I'm just gonna go over the jacket and the chaps because I think that's what you guys are probably most interested in. Anyway, I'm gonna show you guys everything I did from start to finish, so let's get started. So I went out looking for a nice denim jacket base. I was just gonna get like a bleached blue one and dye it black, but I was lucky enough to find this on a Forever 21 sales rack. It even had white threads on it, which I really liked, but of course it had this unnecessary cheesy art on it, which in this case I could just seam rip right out. So I'm just gonna use this as my top, and for the chaps I decided to make those out of just black denim from scratch. I was just gonna use black jeans as a base, but the pockets in the front and back make it a little more complicated and I didn't want to deal with those. So I started off by using some actual jeans that fit me, and I traced one leg, but instead of tracing all the way around, I just eyeballed the curve going from the crotch up to the hip. And I'm also going to round out the top of the pant there just to give room for my hips. And that little tab up there will just be thinner or thicker depending on how much skin you want to show in the front and back. And this is going to serve as my front left leg and also my back right leg. You can make your front and back different if maybe you want some more skin showing in the front or the back, but I'm going to keep mine the same from the front and the back for the sake of simplicity here. I took this brown paper pattern and transferred it to muslin, which is a cheap fabric you can use to make a practice garment to test the fit of what you really want to make. So I'm tracing it on 2 layers of that so I can cut out the front and back at once. And I sewed it up the 2 sides with about a 1/2 inch of seam allowance. Do this twice and you have yourself a left and a right leg. So then begins a process of trying it on and seeing what we want to change. The fit was all right at the top because chaps are so open at the top, they're not really hugging my ass, but at the ankles and calves, it was a bit tight, so I made a note to loosen them at the bottom. And I also made a note to lengthen the little straps at the top because I want this to reach higher, right? My jeans I trace aren't high-waisted, but I do want these to be. So take this time to also ask yourself if you like the curve that's exposing the crotch and the butt. Do you want to show more or less skin? Do you want the front or the back more exposed than the other? I went to my pattern and I traced a replica of it, and I just adjusted the calves to be looser and shorter and lengthened the strap at the top. So I did the same thing over again with these, drafting a new set of pants from more muslin so I could do another fitting. Observe how my scissor is about a 1/2 inch away from where I'm marking out with pencil, so the needle will fall right on those pencil markings, right? So that 1/2 inch of seam allowance will be consistent between both our muslins and that final garment with the black denim. The reason I made these top tabs so long was because I had this idea to have them fold over my belt, but I changed my mind about this later on and just sewed them on regularly. This time around, the fit was better, but I went a little overboard, making the calves too short and way too flared out. So I just made one final pattern change where I finessed that down a little bit more. I didn't bother making a final set of muslin chaps. I just took my final pattern straight to the black denim, but if you were really a disciplined seamstress, maybe you would repeat the muslin process one last time to confirm that the fit is really perfect. especially if, for instance, you have very expensive material that you really can't afford to make mistakes on. So see how I traced them out just like before, and I've cut with scissors about a 1/2 inch away from where I traced, so that 1/2 inch will be our seam allowance. To match the top, I've sewed the denim with white thread, but of course that's just an aesthetic choice. This black denim doesn't stretch like the same kind of material that skinny jeans are made out of, so that's a little bit of a regrettable part of not using the black jeans as my base. So that's just why I was really concerned about testing this with muslin to confirm that the fit was going to be absolutely perfect. After sewing the sides together, I just hemmed the raw edges by folding the right side of the fabric in about a 1/2 inch. You know, the term assless chaps to describe what I'm making is actually a bit of a misnomer, fun fact, because all chaps are already assless, right? They're traditionally worn by cowboys and the like to protect the legs. The term comes from the Spanish chopaderos, so maybe we should be pronouncing it like chaps. Anyway, here's what my chaps are looking like now. The fit is perfect, and what's left for me now is just to attach them to a belt. In total, I bought 2 yards of this denim, so I have more than enough left over to create my belt. I measured 30 inches around my waist, so I cut out a long strip that's about 40 inches long, so it's enough to wrap around my waist and overlap a little bit. And then the width of this is 3 inches, so if I hem it by a 1/2 inch on the top and bottom, the final result will be a 2-inch wide belt, because I took a 1/2 off the top and a 1/2 off the bottom, and 2 halves make a whole, and 2 holes make for a good time. The traditional belt that you might be thinking of has holes punched into it, or you can use some sort of like clip that clicks together like that mechanism on life vests, but I'm going to use this little rhinestone belt buckle. I honestly have no idea if I'm even using this for the intended purpose, but I'm just going to show you what I do with this. I take one end of the belt and wrap it around one side of the circle to enclose it and sew it shut, though you might want to hand sew it to get really close to it and make sure it's firm and secure. The way it works is, well, the way I do it is I loop the other end of the belt up and under the middle of the buckle and back over itself. So I tried it on to see how much overlap there would be when I'm wearing it comfortably, and I marked that with some light pencil, and I'm going to sew on about 5 inches of Velcro to hold together the two faces that would be overlapping. So this is our method of tightening on the belt, and because we've got a long strip of Velcro, we have the ability to make it tighter or looser. This particular Velcro I got is actually sticky on one side, but I still like to sew it on just for more security. And when you're sewing on these like non-aesthetic things, you can sew with black thread so that it doesn't show, right? A fun fact is that this is actually properly called hook and loop. Velcro is just a name brand for it, like tissue and Kleenex or like spandex and Lycra. So the belt comes on like this, and finally, to attach to the chaps, I mentioned earlier that I had this idea to fold down these long tabs and to secure them on with more Velcro. I'm making it sound like they just had a huge sale on Velcro, huh? But I last minute decided to just cut them short and sew them on at the sides regularly by marking on with pencil where they should fall. And then this is the final fit. So you guys, now we can add all our embellishments. The hard part is mostly done now. I started with these metal spikes that come with 2 parts that screw together. So you can pierce a hole through the fabric with a tiny screwdriver and then pop through the base of the screw, and then screw on the spike on top, tightening it at the bottom with a screwdriver. You could also just glue them on if you want. These are light enough that I think they could hold up pretty well with glue. The chaps are made out of a thicker denim that are harder to prick through than the jacket, so I did indeed use glue down there. I did a bunch of these all over the front of the jacket and the top of the back, concentrating most of them at the top along the shoulders. I wanted most of the bling on the jacket to be nearest at the top and then sort of graduate down. It's probably the most logical idea to start off with the largest bling and then fit the smaller stones in the in-betweens, but I didn't exactly know where I was going with this. So here's me stoning the collar. I'm just using E6000 and keeping the stones really close together there. I midway decided on some new things I could start adding. These are little studs with spikes in the back, and you just have to pierce them through and bend the spikes inwards to secure it in using some large blunt tool. I got a ton of these because I saw them for really cheap at the fabric store, but as I got towards the end, I decided I would take them out because they're not as shiny and as brilliant as the other gems that I was gluing on. I really wanted to go for the look of just the gems and jewels and bits and bobs sort of just thrown together, sort of messy and eclectic like, not super structured. So here we're adding some more rhinestones to the top half of the top and at the top of the arms, like along the shoulders, going down to the elbows. I wanted some larger pieces here and there, so I cut up some jewelry. I actually got these in the beading section at Michael's on sale, and I cut them up to glue them on individually. Some of them have little bumps at the back with holes that are meant to be threaded through because these are meant to be beaded for like necklaces, so they don't all have the ideal flat back for gluing. Sometimes you can break off the bumps at the back with pliers so that they do have a flat back, but sometimes the best way to attach them can be to sew them on with a needle and thread. But if the surface at the back is flat enough, you can glue them on with more E6000. So the parts that I really wanted to stand out and be more focal points, like the pocket's edges and the collar, I concentrated the most stones there so that if you step back a bit, these are going to be the shiniest and stand out the most. Like for this pocket's edge, I glued the stones in lines with zero spacing in between so that it would look really brilliant. I used 3 colors of stones, all around the same size, which is an SS20. That's around 5mm wide. I sort of wish I had lots of different sizes of rhinestones, but this is what I got. I have clear silver stones, which are the brightest and the shiniest, and then there's the darker silver and the black. So I'll use the 3 as a gradient to cascade the rhinestones into the bottom of the jacket, and I'll use the lightest, brightest clear stones at the top, and I definitely use them the most. But aside from just spreading them out wider, I also like to blend them into the darker stones. The darker silver stones are certainly less lustrous than the clear silver ones, and I also used only that color to cover up the bra and panties. And the black stones are like almost pretty much invisible, they hardly even shine at all, but it is a nice detail that you'll only see if you get up close. To do the fringe, you want to find the seam that goes up the arm and across the back. It should be one continuous line, you see that there. We're going to glue our fringe onto that with some E6000. Now, if I was making this from scratch, maybe I would sew the fringe into the seam, but the glue already works pretty well. You just have to wait a long time for it to dry. To hide the ribbon that's holding the fringe together, I glued this on upside down so that when it's dry, it would just fold down and hide the ribbon. If you're going to move this around, maybe hold it in place with clips because it can move really easily while the glue is still fresh. Like if you pull one section of it, like the whole thing might come undone. It needs about a full 24 hours to dry. So now we're going to do the chaps, which is not too different from what we were doing at the top. I focused most of the bling on the outer seam of the legs as well as the entire flared out bottoms. So I let them blend in and graduate in towards the crotch and inner thigh where it was going to be more bare. I didn't use my huge biggest jewels down here because I think the pants are going to have some more movement. And to have some big huge jewels down here, they're just more likely to fall off, especially if you put them near the knees. So after you give the one side about a day to dry, you're gonna do the same on the other side, flip it over, and then a day later, you're gonna wanna hit the side seam where the front and back meet so that you can hide the seam. I was gonna put fringe down the sides of these, but the fringe that I bought didn't really work out. It was gonna be too long. If you're gonna put fringe down the side of your pants, you're gonna want it to be a shorter fringe, right? Once you get the chaps all done and the foundational garments are sewn together and they fit nicely, the stoning takes like dozens and dozens of hours. It's the longest part, but also I think the easiest and the funnest part, to me at least. Alright you guys, that was the tutorial. The bra and panties, you know, I've done videos about stoning before. I'm pretty sure you can figure it out on your own. The bra I really just bought from a store and then added these rhinestones on them, and then the panties I just cut out from a pattern that I just traced other panties out of. I found this hat on Kijiji, which is a little buy-sell website here in Canada, so I tracked down somebody in my neighborhood who was selling a black cowboy hat. So I just bought that from them and then covered it in a little bit of rhinestone trim from the fabric store. I really hope you guys enjoyed watching this and that it inspired you guys. Taking some clothes from the thrift store or from the mall and upcycling them or embellishing them and adding all of your accessories to them is a great way to have some custom items in your wardrobe, even if you don't have much knowledge of a sewing machine. If you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I worked really hard. And be sure to check out my Instagram at onlinekind if you want to see more angles, more pictures of this look. But until my next video, I hope you guys are all doing well, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!